The pole here for the third year in a row.
It's Istanbul, but not quite as we've come to know it for this Turkish Grand Prix. An earlier date in the calendar and temperatures in the high teens instead of the high 30s. But this race comes at an absolutely vital point in the season. Back-to-back 1-2 victories from Ferrari, Felipe Massa on pole position. But the McLaren's filling the next two places on the grid. So will this race see a further strengthening of Ferrari domination or the start of the fight back from the other contenders? Race action will be described by Martin Brundle and James Allen. But first of all, let's take a closer look at this Istanbul circuit.
The anti-clockwise Istanbul Grand Prix circuit, 3.3 miles, 8 left-handers and 6 right. Lots of contour changes. The drivers really love this racetrack.
We love the undulation of this Istanbul racetrack. Turn 1, an unsighted left-hander approached at 190 miles an hour. They need one reference point for braking, a second reference point for turn-in, before finally the corner unfolds in front of their eyes.
The legendary Turn 8. It's got 4 apexes. Some drivers miss one of those and sweep around the outside. It is a great challenge. The loading in the car is tremendous. A full 8 seconds of G-force for the drivers to cope with too. A real challenge.
So let's take a look at the grid for the 4th Turkish Grand Prix. And for the 3rd year in a row, it's Massa on pole position. Kovalainen gets his first ever front row start. Through to row 2, Lewis Hamilton disappointed not to be on the pole with Raikkonen alongside. Row 3, Kubica first time this year off the front 2 rows, and Mark Webber. Alonso and Trulli make up row 4. Row 5, Nick Heidfeld disappointing in qualifying, and David Coulthard. Then it's Rosberg and Barrichello on row 6. Row 7, Jenson Button and Sebastian Vettel in the Toro Rosso. Row 8, Timo Glock, who was very quick in the first part of qualifying, and Kazuki Nakajima. PK couldn't get it together, he's 17th, Sebastian Bourdais alongside. But 2 Force India's Sutil ahead of Fisichella, and the gap at the back where Super Aguri used to be. Hello everybody, welcome to a cloudy and rather chilly Istanbul. Well, Felipe Massa has won 6 Grand Prix in his career, and he's only ever won from pole position, which is where he starts from today. But 20 cars take their place. No Super Aguri, of course. They've pulled out of Formula One. On the left-hand side is Felipe Massa. On the right is Heikki Kovalainen. Where are the start lights?
I wonder if there's a problem, because that's an awful long time to leave these. Oh, here we go.
Okay, watch out for Massa covering Kovalainen. Watch out for Hamilton starting behind Massa. The race is underway. The heat haze lifts, and we come down to turn 1, 2, 3, 4 abreast in places. Hamilton straight up into second place, and it looks like Raikkonen has been boxed out of it. He's way down. We've got a collision at the back. If that's Fisichella, that's 3 years in a row he's been involved in a start line shunt. But look at Raikkonen, he's lost places here, and Hamilton has had a dream start.
Surely they'll have to think about the safety car and deploy that. The Force India almost turning over in the back of our picture. It's Massa then from Kovalainen. The BMW up to 3rd place. Sorry, Hamilton in 2nd place. The safety car is deployed.
Well, we said it was an inevitability rather than a possibility. I'd like to take another look at it, but that's turn 1 for you. Massa then is the order. It is Fisichella. So that's 3 years in a row he's been involved in a first corner. You'd have thought you'd have learned by now, wouldn't you? Massa, Hamilton, Kubica, Kovalainen, Alonso, Raikkonen, the top 6. So Raikkonen's lost 2 places. Alonso has made up some ground. He was 7th on the grid, he's now 5th. But the big winner here, 2 of them actually, Lewis Hamilton up to 2nd and Robert Kubica from 5th up to 3rd. There's Kazuki Nakajima, who's lost his rear wing in that incident at the start. Nakajima starting in 16th place on the grid, a couple of rows in front of Fisichella, who walks in disconsolately.
Yeah, looking at the damage, you'd suspect that Fisichella hit the back of Nakajima's car.
Hey, I need a new front wing. I need a new front wing. I need a new front wing.
New front wing, message pretty clear there from Adrian Sutil, the German driver in the other Force India entry. And this is what the drivers really didn't want, isn't it, Martin? Behind the safety car in these chilly conditions, the tyre temperature drops and it's quite a tricky thing for them.
Yeah, let's watch the start then. Massa getting away perfectly. Hamilton's already ahead of Kovalainen, who's very cautious down into turn 1. That is where Raikkonen gets put out of line. And in the background, you've got, as I thought, Fisichella getting in too hot behind Nakajima. And we'll see it from another angle now. Right in the back there, Fisichella locks his front wheel. He's gone in way too hot. Very nasty accident. Seems as if they both, of course, uninjured. Raikkonen then, we're going to see him getting pinched down into the apex of 1 by Kovalainen, who's just ahead of us at the moment. Almost inevitable. That puts him on his back foot, but he's down in 6th place. That allowed Alonso through. He had got a cleaner exit out of turn 1 as Fisichella, it was 100% his fault, walks back to the pits.
And off we go then with Massa leading away. Hamilton will hope that Massa hasn't been able to keep his tyres warm and he can attack him straight away. Kubica's lost some ground though on the restart. Alonso is tucked up behind Kubica and Raikkonen is some distance behind. But it looks like Hamilton's going to try and get onto the tail of Massa straight away here. Massa leading, Hamilton, Kubica 3rd, Alonso 4th, then Raikkonen 5th. 6th is Webber. We're hearing that Kovalainen is pitting. Here he is with a left rear puncture.
That's put him out of contention largely, hasn't it? This is Hamilton's best shot, I think, back out on track. We know the McLaren heats up its tyres better. And he knows then that this first lap or 2 after the restart is his best chance to pass the Ferrari of Felipe Massa. Massa, of course, has the softer tyres anyway, so has got a couple of tenths of extra pace in those. Can Hamilton make something of this opportunity?
Well, Massa seems to be coping with it very well indeed. There's the world champion, Raikkonen, down in 5th place. He's gained a spot, of course, with Kovalainen coming into the pits to deal with that puncture. That's good news for Raikkonen. And he now has to do something about Alonso. He doesn't want to get held up by him. He wants to be able to run at the same pace as the cars up front here. Great exit for Raikkonen. He's going to make a move.
Well, he's going to have to go round the outside then. Alonso surely will. No, he's let him go. So much straight line speed, that Ferrari. Raikkonen almost out-braking himself when he got there. Webber watching on, hoping to steal a place in all of that, but he just breezed past. It was so easy. And Alonso realised there was no point in fighting that one.
So now Mark Webber will come up onto the tail of Fernando Alonso. Started this Grand Prix in front of the Renault driver. Obviously lost out in that shuffling around at the start as everybody streams through at the end of the first racing lap after the safety car. This is lap 4. Massa holding his advantage over Hamilton. Here's another look at that Raikkonen pass.
Yeah, look at this. He's got something like 5 miles an hour advantage. In fact, Alonso just let him go. Didn't want to know.
Well, we saw that inevitable first corner accident. I mentioned that's the 3rd year in a row for Fisichella. He's talking now with Louise Goodman.
And Carlo, 3rd time in a row you've had an accident at the first corner here. Did you just overcook it?
I don't know. I mean, I did a good start, and in braking, I think Bourdais or some other drivers, he closed the door, and I couldn't stop my car, so I don't think it's my fault.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, he'll enjoy watching the video because inevitably you get a concertina effect of 20 cars all aiming at the same point, and you have to make an allowance. I think he got in there 20, 30 miles an hour too fast. Louise has found Nakajima.
Kazuki, I just spoke to Giancarlo. He said he felt that wasn't his fault. Did you take the corner as you would have expected?
I was just following the guy in front to the first corner. Then I think I didn't change the line rapidly. So actually I didn't know what happened, to be honest. So suddenly I just had a shock from the behind, and yeah, had serious damage on the car. So
Thanks, Kazuki.
Hamilton maintained the gap to Massa on lap 6. That's very important. It is looking good for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, that was a significant lap for Hamilton. He set a fastest first sector of anybody on that lap, and he's just beaten it on this lap. And he matched Massa's lap time for the first time, and it looks like this one he might actually go a shade faster. Hamilton is pulling back at Massa now. Is this the soft tyres then beginning to go through their graining phase, and the Ferrari beginning to struggle a little bit? Certainly this McLaren we've seen in the last couple of Grand Prix has been very, very strong on the harder tyre. Hamilton chose it yesterday for qualifying, even though conventional wisdom says the soft tyre would give you an extra 0.3 of a second over the lap. He went for the harder tyre, and he's happy on it. The car is balanced on it, and now he's beginning to come back at Felipe Massa. Massa leads Hamilton then. Kubica third, Raikkonen fourth, Alonso fifth, and Webber in sixth. This is lap 9 of the Turkish Grand Prix. Felipe Massa just set the fastest lap of anybody so far, but Hamilton beat it by a few hundredths of a second. The gap is a second and a half between them, the front two. Lewis Hamilton looking really racy here at Istanbul this afternoon. From third place on the grid, managed to get up into second at the start. Robert Kubica is in third place in the BMW. Fourth is Kimi Raikkonen. Kubica now 3.5 seconds behind Hamilton. And then Alonso and Webber are fifth and sixth, with Heidfeld seventh, Rosberg eighth, David Coulthard in ninth place, and Jarno Trulli 10th. Jenson Button is in 11th in the Honda, ahead of his teammate and record-breaking race starter for the 257th time today, Rubens Barrichello, down in 12th place, and 18th at the moment, Heikki Kovalainen, who started this Grand Prix on the front row of the grid. We had an accident into turn 1 involving Fisichella and Nakajima, and well, Kovalainen picked up a puncture and had to come into the pits for a new set of tyres. He's down in 18th spot. Massa leading Hamilton now by just 1.1 seconds, and again Lewis takes time out of Massa in that sector 1. Third is Kubica, dropping off the back now, 5.5 seconds behind Hamilton, with Raikkonen a second and a half behind him. Fifth is Alonso, sixth still Webber, although Webber's dropping off the back of Alonso, Martin. He's now 4 seconds behind him. And then Heidfeld and Rosberg rounding out the top 8.
Interesting too that Raikkonen doesn't have a lot of speed. He fell away a couple of tenths from third place man Kubica last time around. The BMW has not looked as good here this weekend, has it, as it did earlier in the season, without any question at all.
Yeah, Raikkonen's losing about half a second a lap to Hamilton at the moment. That's good news for Hamilton later on in this race, as Piquet takes on Bourdais, going right off the line. Vettel, I beg your pardon, going right off the line to make that pass stick. So that's Piquet up into 15th place, Vettel down to 16th.
Another new fastest lap from Hamilton, the gap down to just 0.7 now. How strong is Felipe Massa's head? Because Hamilton's looks very good today, and he's got to go through the phase of those softer tyres later on in the Grand Prix. That's the only problem. Hard tyres going on Fernando Alonso's Renault. He'll fall down the pack with that early stop. That's a good 3 laps earlier than you would normally expect to come in.
It is, and it's interesting from Mark Webber's perspective, because obviously Alonso got in front of Webber off the start line, but Webber had out-qualified the Renault driver with more fuel in the car. And given that they're both using the same engine, Red Bull is a customer of Renault's for engines. That's a great effort by Webber to get in front of him, of Alonso, with more fuel in the car. So proof positive, if you needed more, that Red Bull is definitely moving forward as a team. And in fact, Mark Webber saying yesterday after qualifying that he's talking to the team about extending his contract. He wants to stay at Red Bull because he feels they are making great progress and he's enjoying himself there.
Well, Lewis will be getting a nice tow from that Ferrari as it punches a big Ferrari-sized hole in the air, and then he's got to put up with the dirty air that's affecting his own aerodynamics then through the corners, and Hamilton pits. Hamilton was very early on fuel as well. We thought he was going to lap 18. He's only done 16, so that's a bit disappointing, I have to say. I thought he was going to go at least as far as the Ferrari, and it takes a little bit of the shine off of this first stint in the race.
Yeah, well, let's see how much further Massa goes, whether it's a lap or 2 or 3. And obviously Hamilton was coming up behind Massa, but no real reason strategically to bring him in any early. You'd want him to go into as far as he could into the race on the opening stint. It's a bit early to stop, really. Ideally, a very aggressive strategy then from Lewis Hamilton, and he rejoins.
Now, remember in last year's race, he had a tyre failure, Lewis Hamilton. I wonder if they're feeling the need to protect that here today, because we think he had possibly more fuel on board than that. And I just wonder if he's even heading for a three-stopper there, but whether he's having to segment the race accordingly, if he's protecting something.
As we ride on board with Kovalainen making progress through the traffic, just going past the Toro Rosso there of Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, just looking at the strategy plans, I think almost certainly Hamilton's on a three-stopper. He's certainly going to be stopping early enough in this race to not want to go for a half distance on a soft set of tyres, judging by the way that the McLarens worked on the soft tyres throughout this Grand Prix weekend. Because Mark Webber pits on lap 19 in the Red Bull, was fourth.
Yeah, you're at 50 miles an hour, you point into your garage of men and fuel with a boiling hot missile, basically. It's a volatile mixture, but it's beautifully choreographed, and out goes Mark Webber.
To be in front of Fernando Alonso. That's Alonso coming down the pit straight now. I think Alonso's going to hold the place, though. It's going to be very, very close. You're not allowed to cut across the line, and Alonso retakes the place. So Webber slots in behind him. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to leapfrog him in the first round of pit stops, and that'll be very disappointing, I think, for Mark Webber and the Red Bull guys.
Yep. I think they'll be surprised to see Alonso out there in front of him. Alonso's obviously been lapping rather nicely, although it doesn't say so on the computer. He did a 1 minute 29.5 last time around, which is a full 2.5 seconds off the leader's pace. So I wonder why Webber, as the leader himself, pits.
Yeah, Alonso, of course, having just taken on fuel on his outlap, managed to do just enough, though, to keep him himself in front of Webber. Another set of the soft tyres going on then, so Massa seems to like them. Kubica also dives into the pits. There he goes on our left as Massa exits the pits. Another set of hard tyres going onto the BMW. Slick operation here by the BMW Sauber outfit. Back out on track goes the former race leader Felipe Massa. Through the screen, I believe, goes Heidfeld. Where's Lewis Hamilton? There he is.
Well, that's all right. That's okay.
Not bad from Hamilton's point of view.
He's still in touch. Obviously, Massa's got the benefit of some fully up to temperature soft tyres. Will he have to go through that graining phase again? Hamilton, if anything, looks fractionally closer, doesn't he?
This is lap 21, and Raikkonen's just done a 1:26.5. So this is the big push now to get himself in front of Kubica at his first round of pit stops. It depends how much further he can go as to whether or not he'll be able to have a go at Hamilton and Massa as well.
Well, the deficit was 1.4 seconds to Kubica before the stops began for Kimi Raikkonen, and if he carries on at that pace, surely he will clear the BMW. We'll keep an eye on the relative lap times. Kubica's still on his outlap. It's a 1 minute 53, including the pit stop and refueling, of course.
Well, Felipe Massa's stop was 8.2 seconds as Ferrari get ready for the other driver, Kimi Raikkonen. So Massa took on quite a bit more fuel than Lewis Hamilton in that first stop. He's going to have a much longer stint here. Still do think that it looks like Lewis is going to try and do a three-stop this afternoon as we get ready for the world champion to bring it into the pit lane. Get the car controlled down to speed. Pit lane speed limiter goes on.
Yeah, but it just, he seemed to have the wrong gear or something. It was a very scruffy pit in there for Raikkonen, quick, but all looked a little bit out of control as he came to the line. And they're crucial, those laps. They're just as crucial as the time that it takes to put the tyres on and the fuel in. Where is he going to be in relation to the BMW? He's going to be a mile ahead of it.
Yeah, Kubica at the top of the screens. We've seen it. Massa and Hamilton both going through to resume first and second places. Here comes Raikkonen out ahead of Robert Kubica. Yes, indeed he is. So by staying out a little bit longer, pushing hard when the car was light, he managed to leapfrog the BMW up into third place, and now he can set about chasing after Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton is chasing down Felipe Massa for the lead of this Grand Prix. Half a second was the margin between them the last time round. It's nothing at all to choose, and Hamilton's lining him up for a pass now. Here he goes down the inside, but Massa comes across and goes defensive. Hamilton squeezes him out and takes the lead of the Turkish Grand Prix. A fantastic and very bold pass by Lewis Hamilton. And of course he knows this track. He raced here in GP2 and it was probably one of his greatest ever races, coming back from 21st place to finish second, passing people left, right and centre. He knows exactly how to do it round here. We have to control ourselves a little bit because we're not quite sure exactly what strategy Hamilton's playing out here. He came in quite early and didn't put much fuel on, but nevertheless that's a magnificent pass.
Yes, Massa left him about the space of a McLaren and a little bit extra. Hamilton decided to take it. They were both kicking up the dirt from the unused part of the racetrack, and Hamilton knows, having taken 2 seconds less of fuel on at the pit stop, he's got the lighter, faster car. He had to make this move work for him now. He could not afford to be held up behind Massa in this phase of the Grand Prix. Look at that, very brave, supremely skillful stuff from both drivers, and Lewis was going through there come what may.
Yeah, not the first time that Hamilton has passed Massa. That's Massa's father and his manager Nicholas Todd there. Ron Dennis on the McLaren pit wall is loving this. What Ferrari are doing is a conventional, equally distributed two-stop strategy, the optimum fastest way to do this race. And McLaren is trying something different here. Bourdais is off the track in the Toro Rosso and beached.
He's got no hope and bob hope of getting that thing out of there. Might as well switch it off. That's as buried as I've seen anything for a long time. Whoops, what's going on there? Looks like some kind of braking issue or possibly a drive shaft, something like that.
As Kovalainen pits in the second McLaren from 11th. 32 laps to go. 9.9 seconds the stop.
Another new fastest first sector of anybody in the Grand Prix so far for Hamilton. He knows he's got a job to do. And I suspect that the Ferrari drivers have been told that Hamilton may be doing a short stint, may well be doing a three-stopper. It'll all unfold soon. Hamilton, lap 29, leads Massa by 4.8 seconds and Raikkonen by 14.6 seconds.
Robert, no radio from car to pit. We are racing Hamilton.
We are racing Hamilton, says the engineer Robert Kubica, who is currently running in 4th place, 21 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. And Hamilton's doing something a little different here. He's making this race exciting. It may even turn out to be one that we talk about for a while, because he has passed Felipe Massa on the racetrack on lap 23, having started this race 3rd on the grid. He got up to 2nd in the opening lap behind the Ferrari driver, but passed him on lap 23. He's running a lighter car than the Ferrari, and he's pulled out a 7.5 second lead over Felipe Massa and a 16-second lead over 3rd place man, also in a Ferrari, the reigning world champion Kimi Raikkonen. So if Hamilton is three-stopping here this afternoon, he needs to have this kind of 1 second a lap advantage over the two Ferraris, because he's going to need a 24-second cushion in order to make the extra stop that he has to make. And at the moment, it's not looking bad for him. Button and Glock, this is a race for position. They were 8th and 9th when they came in. Glock was saying he was being held up by Button's teammate Rubens Barrichello. Glock's away first. Can Jensen slot in front of him? Yes, he can. So they will leave the pits as they came in.
All legal enough. Fine there. Honda were right to release him. Jensen getting it underway better than Glock. And look, that gained him a spot. Here's Hamilton then in the pits. He is surely three-stopping.
Ted Kravitz is there for us.
Well, let's have a look. If it's 6 seconds fuel time, then we know it's the second of 3. And if it's any longer than that, then it will be going to a 2. But no, it is the hard tyres, so it must be the second of 3. The McLaren boys go to work. They're really happy with this slot down here in the pit lane, by the way. Good stop by them.
Wow!
Because it allows Lewis to go right up. Yes, James. Wow, indeed. Good work by McLaren.
That was a very slick stop. 6.2 seconds. He's back in the race, and he's really on fire today. Terrific performance by him, a very bold, audacious move by the McLaren team. Not really noted for bold, audacious race strategies. They tend to go more conservative, really, but they're really going for it here and giving us plenty to talk about. This is on board with Jenson Button, looking across the rear wing of the Honda to the chasing Renault of Nelson Piquet, who's had not a fantastic weekend. Practice went okay, qualifying was disappointing for him. He didn't get out of the first part of qualifying and started the race down in 17th on the grid. But, well, he's up to 12th at the moment, and he's in this clump of cars with Timo Glock in the Toyota and Heikki Kovalainen in the McLaren. Not quite sure what to think about Glock's start to his Toyota career. It's not his first time in Formula One. He was at Jordan a few years ago, but he's been a little bit anonymous, hasn't he? A few moments of speed.
Solid, I think, is the best you can call it. Piquet then with a very oversteery Renault, but it seems quicker than Button's Honda. Button having just refueled, of course. Glock behind under big pressure from Kovalainen. Surely Kovalainen with the perfect slipstream and a shot at Glock down into this turn 12. It will come into the bottom of your screen any minute now, and there it is. And Glock kept the inside line, nothing Kovalainen could do about it.
Yeah, so Kovalainen has to push on, try and find another way. Timo Glock was one of the men that had a tremendous battle here in GP2 with Lewis Hamilton that day I was mentioning. Now Louise Goodman is down in the pits. What have you got for us?
Well, I've got Sebastian Bourdais. Sebastian, we saw your car make a little twitch before it went off. Did something break?
Yeah, I can only assume, because the car is braking straight, and this time it felt like something went wrong at the back of the car, either brakes or suspension. I have no idea. I didn't see the engineers yet, but definitely something went wrong.
Thank you.
Well, some GP2 graduates there racing each other hard with Kovalainen, Glock and Piquet just ahead of them. Kovalainen with a significantly faster car. He's out of position because of that puncture. I think after tagging with Raikkonen in the very first corner of the Grand Prix. And it's so difficult to follow a car at 160 miles an hour. You can't really see the track. Is he close enough for a stab down into 9? Or will he line himself up more smoothly for a good exit of 10? Glock's got it sideways a bit. So now Kovalainen, he arrived too early last time and he forced himself to go to the right, to the safer line. This time he's got himself with better track position, having learned from last time around. And look what's going on there. Piquet nearly gets nailed by, nearly nails Jenson. Oh no, what's going on there? Kovalainen's managed to outbrake himself, and now it's Glock who's got the racing line. That was poor driving there from Heikki. He really did have that place sorted out, but he's going to snatch it straight back with better exit off the final corner. But Glock fancies a dive at the inside into 1. No chance.
Well, that's exactly what it was like between Glock and Hamilton in GP2 a couple of years ago. This sequence of corners here at the end of the lap in Istanbul, allowing a car to go down the inside. The other one can stay on the outside. He's on the inside for the next corner, and then it twists and turns. They're at it again. Button and Piquet, wheel to wheel. Button doesn't want to give in an inch, but Piquet's taken the line, and that was good racing from Nelson Piquet. Jenson Button gave it all he had, and now Kovalainen, who's got past Glock, is going to have a go at Button as well. He's lost momentum out of the final corner. He's going around the outside of Button, who doesn't put up too much of a fight that time. So all change amongst those four.
Yeah, Button wouldn't have passed his pit board to see that Kovalainen was actually cruising up behind them. He may have mistaken that McLaren as one of the leaders coming through. But good driving from young Nelson Piquet. He's muscled it out around the outside, got himself track position for the right-hander, shoves Button into the pit lane, then he has to come back out again. Let's see it from Jenson Button's viewpoint. Jenson has given himself the inside line, but Piquet's car much faster at this stage, and look, he's just going to push us right over there as if we're going in the pit, and that gives him the space that he needs. As Jenson's just recovering from that, up comes this thing flying at him down the pit straight, and with the correct racing line into turn 1, job done for Kovalainen.
As Ferrari get ready for the second stop of one of their two drivers, and it is the race leader, Felipe Massa, who comes into the pits with 18 laps to go. Nice stop into the box, perfect time. On go the hard tyres for his final stint. And a beautiful extraction of the fuel hose, and away he goes. Cutting back to Lewis Hamilton now, just a second and a half behind race leader Kimi Räikkönen. You can see how the gap has changed. He's into a little bit of traffic here. That's a Toyota in front of us of Timo Glock, who gets out of our way. There's Heidfeld, who's been racing against Fernando Alonso here this afternoon. Comes out in front of Nico Rosberg. Maintaining his place then in front of Alonso. Mark Webber yet to make his second stop of the afternoon in the Red Bull. So a long second stint for him. As we take a look on board the Williams of Nico Rosberg. Haven't seen too much of him today, really. But he's on, looks like he's on for another strong points finish. Although David Coulthard is a threat to him. Just 4 seconds behind in the Red Bull, having his best drive for a while. Into the pits then comes the race leader, Kimi Räikkönen, and this is Hamilton's opportunity now. He was only a second behind him, Lewis Hamilton, when Räikkönen made that stop.
All seems quite casual, doesn't it? Certainly not panicking.
And Räikkönen has slotted in behind Felipe Massa into third place. So now this is the moment for Lewis Hamilton on this audacious strategy here to push. There is Hamilton.
He's aiming at second place. It'll be some sort of magnificent performance if he gets anywhere near Massa, I think. He's got a 10-second deficit to pull on him, but he's got a great chance of splitting the Ferraris if he can carry on to 1 minute 26.8. Some 1.4 seconds quicker than Massa, who's still getting those hard tyres up to speed. Let's just hope that Lewis doesn't go through too much of a graining phase when he puts the soft tyres on for his final charge to the line.
Yeah, it's a pattern we have seen a little bit this season, that the McLaren seems to be just as strong as the Ferrari when it's running on the harder tyre. The Ferrari is a little bit faster on the soft tyre, just able to make them last a little longer, to get the rears to perform a little bit better for them. It's only fractions of a second we're talking about here, and the difference with performance between the two cars is no more than a couple of tenths of a second, and diminishing all the time. And for those McLaren fans out there who've been longing for a return to winning ways for Lewis Hamilton, they do have a history, McLaren, of developing a car very well through the summer into the final part of the season. So it's a long way to go yet in this championship, but this is certainly a statement of intent from McLaren and Hamilton. In he comes to pit lane. This is a critical stop now for the McLaren mechanics.
It's been a good in-lap. He matched his fastest middle sector of the entire Grand Prix. He was a couple of tenths down in the first sector, but a solid in-lap for what will be a very short stop. Just 13 laps worth of fuel going in there, and he has to run the soft tyres this time around. You'll see white stripes on them. It's mandatory, and off come the third set of hard tyres. On goes those softer tyres. Just 13 laps of fuel. Oh, very, very quick. Hope that all got done in time. What's this going on here?
He comes out. That's a Ferrari, but which one is it? It's Räikkönen. He's done it. He's in front of him. Massa went through. Hamilton came out in front of Kimi Räikkönen, who makes a small adjustment to something down the right-hand side of his steering wheel, possibly the brake balance. But either way, it was a nonchalant gesture from a man who's seen his main title rival come out in front of him. We said at the start, could Hamilton challenge Massa at the front, or was it really about keeping Räikkönen behind him? 13 laps to go then in this Grand Prix, and well, we're all on the edge of our seats. Hamilton has come out in front. The McLaren mechanics can relax a little. He can now set about chasing Felipe Massa, who leads this Grand Prix with 13 laps to go. Closing stages of the Turkish Grand Prix from Istanbul, a track that Felipe Massa has owned for the last 2 years. He's won it from pole position 2006 and 2007. He started this one on pole, and he is leading at the moment in the closing stages, just 11 laps to go.
I don't know if DC knows he's fighting Kovalainen. He does now for a position that could be for the final World Championship point. because that could well sit just in front of them with Nico Rosberg there. Kovalainen with a sterling drive back through the field. Almost seemed to catch David Coulthard unawares there, because Kovalainen taking the place relatively easily and heading off down, but Truly's just pitted from 7, so there is a World Championship point here for these 3 drivers.
Yeah, taking another look at it. At the moment, the man sitting in that slot is Rosberg, with Mark Webber on for a 7th place here. And it's been a pretty strong run of points for Webber. He's had 2 7th places and a 5th in the last 3 Grand Prix. Looks like he's going to maintain that run of form. The 2 BMWs are looking strong, well, for points anyway, not for competing for the win, that's for sure. But Kubica and Heidfeld 4th and 5th, with Kubica 15 seconds ahead of his teammate.
Raikkonen hasn't given up on 2nd place. He was 3/10 quicker last time around. Hamilton's just had to engage lapping the Renault, which has put him slightly out of position on this current lap as well. So Raikkonen looks more likely to have a go at Hamilton than Hamilton does Felipe Massa at the moment. And this then could be for the 8th place then. Again, Kovalainen having to take the very long way round. Nico Rosberg, has he got it covered? No, he hasn't. Kovalainen's really perfected that one, hasn't he? Oh, and Rosberg's come back at him just as Glock did earlier on. And can now Kovalainen get that slingshot out? He caught him napping there slightly. What tremendous acceleration that McLaren's got. Look at that. Candy from a baby, really.
Well, it's a sequence of passes we've seen throughout the afternoon. This track is lending itself very well to overtaking. And Kovalainen is into the points, having been dead last in the early stages of this Grand Prix.
But curiously, Kovalainen is pitting again. Ted is down there.
No, it's a splash and dash. He did need to. The collision with Raikkonen on the first lap just threw his strategy completely out of whack, Martin. But as you remember, he did hard, and now he's put the soft tyres on.
Jarno, we are P10. Coulthard in front of you, 3 seconds, and Rosberg another second in front. Try to catch that group. Don't worry, I'm pushing like a hell.
That's so unhelpful, isn't it? Yarno, I'm pushing as hard as I can.
He's 1.6 seconds behind David Coulthard. That's why they're saying get on with it. And only 2.1 seconds then behind Rosberg for a World Championship point. Kovalainen goes around the outside of Glock in turn 3. Kovalainen taking all sorts of unusual lines today to get that McLaren back into contention.
This is the legendary turn 8, described as a mission by Anthony Davidson. The most difficult corner in Formula One by Giancarlo Fisichella. The load on the driver's necks is 25 kilos through there. It's the equivalent of tying an adult Labrador dog to a helmet and having it pulling away. Imagine that extra weight just yanking the side of his head every single time for 58 consecutive laps. A huge physical test, particularly because this track is anti-clockwise, so the drivers aren't used to having the weight on that side of their necks.
So he enters the final lap then. Felipe Massa, he had a 5.3 second advantage last time around. It is now 5.1, still no pressure then. Raikkonen just 0.7 of a second behind Lewis Hamilton. Kubica in 4th, as we rather expected, 17 seconds behind Raikkonen. Hasn't been their best afternoon for BMW. Not quite sure how their engineer calculated they were racing Lewis Hamilton, but anyway, he's still a solid 4th. The man who is 3rd in the World Championship at the moment, Kubica, is going to get some more points.
Well, after a series of patchy results for Lewis Hamilton, a 5th, a 13th and a 3rd, he's certainly turning things around now and getting his championship campaign pointing in the right direction. He's broken the sequence of Ferrari 1-2 finishes which had begun to be established. A very strong performance indeed from him, and another great performance from this man, Felipe Massa, in the Ferrari, who came here on Thursday and said, I own this track. The others came along to challenge him, but it turned out that he was right. He goes through the final sequence of corners then, on his way to collecting his 7th career victory. Historically, his 3rd in a row here at Istanbul Park. Felipe Massa wins the Turkish Grand Prix, his 2nd victory of 2008, to get himself into the championship battle now. And we wait to see Lewis Hamilton. There he is, coming through in 2nd place, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. A vital 2 more points to him in the championship fight, closing the gap now down to just 7 points. Kubica comes through in 4th. Then it'll be Heidfeld, Alonso, Webber and Rosberg picking up the remaining points. Who's your driver of the day?
That's a tough one, isn't it? And Massa has been supreme, and I think I'll give it to Felipe Massa today. I thought that was a very solid and controlled performance as he takes the Grand Prix victory.
It's been a great day in Istanbul. Lewis Hamilton has turned a need to be cautious into a bold challenge. The championship has tightened up, but no one today could match Felipe Massa. He's made it a hat-trick in Istanbul.
It was pretty tough over there, especially Lewis was pushing me hard a lot during the whole race. And knowing that he was on the 1 more stop than me, I said, okay, we don't risk, because the chance to win is quite big, even losing the position to Lewis. And then it's exactly what I did, and I didn't lose my concentration, just keep doing my pace, and it worked.
For sure not what we hoped, but unfortunately it didn't start the way as we wanted on Friday. So yesterday I had a small mistake. Okay, we had more fuel than the others, but I mean, also the start wasn't good. So too many things really didn't work. Damaged the front wing a bit, so made it life a bit difficult.
I don't think we had chance to finish in front of Hamilton, and there was still Räikkönen. So yeah, I think 4th was maximum.
I made 1 position at the start, as we hoped, and then I jumped Alonso and Webber on the pit stop, also as hoped and planned, as I was quite late. After that, I was doing a race pretty much on my own. In the end, had quite some space forward and backwards, and backed off the RPM, and no big moments.
3 races ago, we were 6th in the championship, or 3 races ago. In fact, we had no points. So he's come back fantastic. 28 points in 3 races. You know, it's world champion material.
You hope?
I certainly do.
A Turkish Grand Prix that was a long way from being the Barcelona procession of 2 weeks ago, but what a record Felipe Massa now has in Turkey. A 3rd straight win from pole position. Lewis delighted with his 2nd, and so he should be. He takes points off Räikkönen in 3rd. The BMWs of Kubica and Heidfeld were not a threat today, but that's Kubica's 4th straight finish in the top 4. Alonso, Webber and Rosberg also pick up points. Hamilton moves to within 7 points of Räikkönen's World Championship lead, but loses 2nd place to Felipe Massa by virtue of Massa's 2 race victories to Hamilton's 1. Kubica is 4th, 4 points further back. And 1st and 3rd, it was another good day for Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. They stretched their lead to 19 points over BMW Sauber, who are 2 points ahead of McLaren Mercedes. So, Mark, what do you make of McLaren tactics and what Hamilton achieved today?
I think Hamilton drove a great race. I think the team were outstanding as well, but they were pretty much driven into that race because they had a tyre problem, and that tyre problem made sure they had to do 3 stops. It just wasn't possible for them to lean on those tyres and do a conventional 2-stop race.
Of course, he had a big tyre failure in this race last year. They were nervous of the same thing happening.
Yeah, very much so. I think Bridgestone had given them an indication that that was going to be a possible chance of a tyre exploding again, and they really had to put the strategy around that, and the 3 stops is what they needed to do, but they still came out well with a 2nd place.
Yeah, and Lewis had to drive aggressively right through the race. He certainly drove aggressively at the start.
He did indeed, and I think the start was very well executed by Lewis Hamilton. He got away very cleanly. A little bit of a problem further back, though, for Kimi Räikkönen and Heikki Kovalainen, and a bigger problem, actually, for Fisichella and Nakajima. They collided with each other. Just see Fisichella here at the back of the grid, driving into turn 1, taking way too much speed in, has to lock up, and straight over the top of Nakajima's car. Very lucky indeed there for Nakajima. He didn't get a clout on the head.
And the start from Kimi Raikkonen's point of view, Kovalainen ahead, it was the start of an unproductive but incident-packed day for Kovalainen.
Yeah, difficult one for Kovalainen. He just clips into turn one, but unfortunately Raikkonen also clips his rear left tyre and gives it a puncture. So early days in the pits for Kovalainen to try and get that corrected.
But then Lewis really got those harder tyres working, started reeling in Felipe Massa. The overtaking manoeuvre was a peach, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the move of the race in many ways, because he just slipstreams the Ferrari of Massa, slides up the inside. Massa doing a sensible thing and takes a void in action and drives away from Hamilton doing his move. But look at the speed he carries in here, puts himself down the inside, makes sure that he's got the road. And I think, again, good experience from both those drivers here, just making sure that there's not an incident. But quite a brave move in many ways by Lewis Hamilton to make that stick. And he just, puts it down the left. Doesn't always look like the room's available to him. Massa tries to squeeze, continues in there, takes it in deep. Well executed.
It was a great moment, but Massa went on to control the race, and when Lewis came out of the pits the last time, really second place was the most he could have hoped for.
Yeah, but I think that second place was not just down to Lewis Hamilton. I think it was down to the whole of the McLaren team. They really were great in the pit stops. 5.9 there, and they also did a 6.3 with one of the other stops. And that was where he really made all the pace on the road and in the pits there, with making sure that he came out in front of Kimi Raikkonen. That secured that second place. As I say, I think Lewis Hamilton, his pace and the teamwork of McLaren made sure that second was on the cards.
Outstanding performance by Lewis and his team, but what a day here once again for Felipe Massa.
Istanbul, he's been here the third time now, and the third time he's won this race, and he's won it in style. I think when you have a pole position at the weekend and then you make it count with a race win, it just makes sure that everyone knows that you're the master around this circuit, and yet again he does it.
Felipe Massa wins in Turkey once again, but let's hear from Lewis Hamilton, who's talking with Ted Kravitz.
Well, Lewis, well done. You must be really happy with that. 8 points in the bag. Do you think you had the pace to win today?
Yeah, I think we did. As I said in the press conference, we just we put on a bit of a back foot, and also not being on pole with the fuel strategy we were on really stopped us from winning the race.
Tell us about that move on Massa, because it was important to make your three-stop work, wasn't it?
It was. The guys came across the radio and said, you need to start pushing. Not that wasn't, but you need to push some more. You need to find some more times in the last sector, and you need to overtake Felipe you could possibly win this race. And when I heard that, it's more encouragement, and so I was pushing more, making every second count, and I made very, very, very few mistakes in that race.
And finally, Monaco is next, a track you've always loved. Difficult race there last year. You kind of had your wings clipped, didn't you? How much are you looking forward to that?
I'm very much looking forward to Monaco. My favourite circuit, and I know I'm quickest there, so we should be, providing we can get the car set right, we should have a good weekend.
And we're looking forward to it almost as much as he is. But that's the story of the Turkish Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton absolutely delighted, McLaren encouraged, but Ferrari victorious again through Felipe Massa. It all points to a fantastic battle on the streets of Monaco. Make sure you're with us in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.